What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another M2 competition video. As you probably know by now, if you've watched my review of this car from last week, I'm looking to buy one of these. And because when doing my research I couldn't find a list of all the differences between the M2 LCi and M2 Competition, I've decided to make one myself. So without further ado, here's a comprehensive list of all the changes brought by the M2 Competition. We're gonna talk exterior design, powertrain changes, interior upgrades, and finally we're gonna do an exhaust battle between the two cars. So what's changed design-wise on the new BMW M2 Competition? Well, first off, we have a new front grille. It's more angular, it's unified here in the middle, and it's blacked out as all the other elements throughout the car. The exhaust tips, the M2 badges on the side. Another change up front is the lower part of the front bumper, which has been squeezed a little bit, and now you can see all the extra cooling that's needed for what's under the bonnet. More on that a bit later. Next we have new wheel designs, not these ones, these are the winter tires for this specific press car. And you have the wing mirrors, which finally have the iconic M shape. To be precise, you can choose between 3 alloy wheel designs for the M2 Competition, depending on the market of course. In Sweden the car comes as standard with the exclusive 788 wheels for the competition, but you can also opt for the OG M2 wheels at no extra cost. For 250 euros more, you can get the 788 wheels again, but in black this time. This particular car is equipped with the standard M2 brakes, but the competition can be spec'd with M Sport brakes, i.e. the ones with the silver calipers. That gets you 400mm brake discs at the front and 380 at the back. Basically these are the same as the M Performance brakes that you can retrofit to any M2. While the upsides of having bigger brakes on a performance car are obvious, there's a few downsides as well. First, they're an optional extra, so they'll set you back around 1500 euros. Then there's the fact that they're 15 kilograms heavier than the stock kit, and lastly, you won't be able to fit 18-inch alloys for your winter setup. The M2 Competition has gained 2 color options, but also lost one. Gone is the old mineral grey color, and in is the quite cool Hockenheim silver, and this awesome, in my opinion, sunset orange. Not to be confused with the Valencia orange of the fabulous 1M Coupe. In the back, like I've said, the exhaust tips are painted black, but that's kind of it. The rest of the car, exterior-wise, is identical to the M2 facelift. Now let's see what's under the bonnet. So under the bonnet, you can find the biggest change that's been done to the M2 Competition, which is the fact that it received a new engine. Well, not exactly new, it's new for the M2. This is the same engine that the M3 and M4 have. It's a 3-liter, 6-cylinder petrol unit, but it has 2 turbos. It can produce 410 horsepower and 550 Newton meters of torque. So that's 40 more horsepower than the old car, but that doesn't really do too much because this engine, along with the cooling, has brought in extra weight. So they kind of balance each other out. But another important thing that was lifted from the M3 and M4 and put onto the M2 Competition is this wonderful carbon fiber strut brace. And this has a massive effect on reducing body flex when cornering. But these are basically the changes on the outside and underneath the skin for the new M2 Competition. Now it's time to jump inside because I'm freezing out here, so I can show you what's changed in there. But before you do that, there's one small detail I'd like to tell you. Unlike what you may have heard in other reviews of the M2 Competition, this car features the same suspension system as my old BMW M2 facelift. BMW's engineers only tweaked the power steering, the active M differential and the traction control of the car through software, but that's it. No mechanical changes have been done to the car. So, the interior of the M2 Competition, what's new? Well, first off, these awesome seats. They're very comfortable, they look great, they have accents all over the place. This car for some reason has a blue exterior but an orange stitching on the seats. I don't know who spec'd this car, but it's definitely wrong. But don't worry, you can have these seats with either these orange accents or with the blue ones. They also have an illuminated M2 logo on them, some Alcantara on the sides, and yeah, like I've said, they're a much welcomed addition to the M2. Now, up front over here, the dials have M2 Competition specific fonts. Not a huge deal, but it's new. Then you have a red starter button. And finally, BMW came to its senses and introduced the M drive modes for the M2 as well. What are those, you ask? Well, first let me go back to my old M2 facelift, which basically had the same exact driving modes as any other BMW. You would have Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus, right? While all other M cars had individual settings for all the areas of the car. You could set the throttle response of the engine, you could individually set the weight of the steering wheel and how stiff you wanted the suspension to be. Well, finally BMW brought that to the M2. Except for the suspension tweaking part, because you probably know by now, but the M2 doesn't have an adaptive suspension system, so there you go. You only have two settings here, one for the steering and one for the throttle response. And another cool feature specific for M cars that the M2 facelift didn't have are these two buttons on the steering wheel, and each of these two buttons holds a specific configuration between the settings I just previously mentioned. So for example, if I go into the iDrive menu of the car and select mDrive 1 configuration, I can individually set the DSC mode, the engine's response, the steering weight and the transmission mode. You can set all of that, save it, and then later on when you press M1, all of those settings are gonna come into play. Same goes for the M2 button. You can choose a different combination and then you just press that one and it switches immediately to all the settings that you have stored into M2. So for example, I use M1 for daily driving. I set the gearbox ferocity to half, 2 out of 3 to be more precise, and I set the engine to efficient and the steering to comfort. That's basically the perfect setting for me to daily drive this car around town. And then on the M2 button I've set every setting to its sportiest one, and then I turn the traction control to MDM mode. And then when you're driving along, you can quickly go from a relaxing car to drive to a very ferocious one by just clicking a button. A few things I forgot to mention when recording this video, and these are: 1. The fact that the traction control system has been upgraded, it's now less intrusive and it allows lots more rear play before it kicks in, especially in MDM mode. Then there's the fact that the M2 Competition finally comes with parking sensors in the back and in the front, along with the button to quickly turn them off. And last but not least, you now have two trim options. This carbon one that the OG M2 also had, but with the addition of a piano black one. So that's it. These are all the changes that the M2 Competition went through. And even though this car looks quite similar to my old facelift car, it's a totally different beast. So which of the two do you think sounds best? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I also hope it helps future M2 competition customers to know all the details before they decide to buy one or not. But that's been it for today, my friends. Please give this video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed for plenty more videos to come. And until next time, take good care of yourselves and I'll see you around.